Welcome to Off the Record, talking real estate with Joe and Makayla. If you're interested in the Portland, Oregon real estate market and want the unvarnished inside scoop, you've come to the right place. Thanks for giving us a listen. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Hi, Makayla.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing really well. I am well rested and almost feel like I'm on top of my list of to-dos and whatnot for the day, which is always a good feeling.
Were you running around all day or were you in the office today? What was your schedule like?
I worked out of the home office today, ran around, got some errands done, actually got my workout in this morning.
Nice.
I know,
I
right?
love that.
I know. It just brightens things up. Mm-hmm. So how about yourself? How are you?
I'm good. It was kind of a runaround day for me. I was in Oregon City at a listing this morning and then raced back home for our meeting and then got some little things done. And now we're here.
And here we are. And I'm excited about today's topic. We're always excited about the topic because, talking real estate. But I'm excited about this topic because with the whole NAR settlement, with the changes in buyer broker representation, and there's just this feeling out there that, and I think it's companies like Redfin and Zillow and other different entities that have made people feel like brokers just help find the home, if that, open the door, write the offer, and that's it.
Totally. I think that's the biggest misconception.
That is one that we're going to talk about here today. And the title of this podcast is Buying a Home, What Could Go Wrong, You Ask? And there is so much that can go wrong and so many things that have to be done the right way. And so many things that I think home buyers don't even know that their brokers are doing that is costing them money, time, and possibly the sale of their home. Right?
Definitely.
We see it all the time because obviously 85, 90% of the time we're working with another broker in the sale of a home. And whether we're representing the seller or the buyer, there's a give and take. And you get to see how people operate and what they do. And there's a lot of good ones out there. Some really good brokers in Portland. But like anything and like any large group of people, there's also a bunch that really just aren't that good. Mm-hmm. And with all the changes that are happening, I feel like more and more brokers are not going to educate themselves and more home buyers are not going to get the representation that they deserve. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And, it goes into why is a buyer broker representing me so important? And the big reason for that is looking at the notes right now.
Looking at the notes.
It's actually going to be the law.
Oh, because it's going to be the law. Ding, ding, ding. It's so funny because to me, it's just baked in. It's just funny that there would be another answer for that. But,
I know. But yeah, as of January 2025, Oregon House passed a bill saying a realtor needs to have a written contract with someone looking to buy a home, similar to needing to have a contract when you sell someone's home.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy to me that we've been in this industry has existed for this long and you haven't had to have an agreement between buyer and broker. I
know that seems just crazy to me as well. Mm-hmm. And a lot of brokers are freaking out about it. And a lot of consumers, home buyers are like, why do we need this?
I just think about all the times I work with anyone or any type of business entity. I'm going to sign a contract at some point, whether I'm working with a contractor at my house, that's going to require me to sign a contract. Whether you're walking into a trampoline park, you're going to have to sign a waiver for that, and then all the way up to lawyers, you're going to need to sign with them as well. So
I think it's a good thing for the industry. I think it's a good thing for the consumer. And today we're not going to really go into the buyer broker representation and what all that looks like and all those different things. That's a podcast for another day, I think. But what we want to talk about today is why professional representation when you're buying a home matters and why it's important and why you should be really diligent in doing your homework on who represents you in the purchase of your next home, because there are so many pitfalls, there's so many traps, there's so many bumps in the road and different things out there that people don't even know about that it matters. And
not to mention there's money on the line. There's money that can be lost.
A ton of money.
If things go wrong.
Right. And there's so many people out there that are like, we've written 12 offers. And granted, sometimes it happens that way, but that usually doesn't need to be the case, right? And
Right.
we'll talk about that. So we're going to talk about what can go wrong. And this is just a small sample, people. We try to keep these podcasts somewhat short. If we were to go into every single thing that we've seen over the past just 6 months, 3 months of the transactions that we've done last week, it would be a 4 or 5 hour podcast that we're talking about here.
Unfortunately.
Finding the home isn't really that tough anymore because it's all out on the aggregators like Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, all that sort of stuff. But there still are off-market properties and that type of stuff. But finding the home in general really isn't the problem. It's getting the home, and the really good ones are still going fast. So we'll talk about that. And then finding out about the home once you get under contract and all the different things that go into that. And then after that, closing the transaction. And there's just so much that goes into all of that. So
I love the way that you broke that up because those are all 3 very different pillars. So I'm glad we're hitting on them.
yeah, that's the outline.
Love it.
Let's start off by talking about getting the home. Let's just assume you found the home that you want. You've, called your realtor, texted, hey, I found this. I'm really interested in it. Can we go see it? You go see it. It's the perfect home. It's the one you've been waiting for. So let's talk about making a competitive offer. What does that look like, Makayla?
Oh gosh, there's so much to it. And we won't bore you with all the details, but it is something that we take very seriously. And there's a lot that happens on the back end that I think is worth chatting about. So in a competitive offer situation, sometimes there's 4, 5, a dozen offers on one home. And it's our job to figure out how we can write you the best offer to get you in the home.
And part of that is just finding out how many offers there are.
Totally. And I think that's what I want to hit on is that first conversation when we talk to the broker who's selling the home is so important. To me, it lays how this is going to go completely. Our ability to work with other people in a way that, makes everybody happy is what is going to get it done. If we're calling this broker and we're demanding things and demanding information about what offers they have and being unprofessional, that just already sets a bad tone and is already putting you in a bad spot to maybe not get your offer accepted because that broker just doesn't want to work with us.
Right, exactly.
So that first call with the broker, we're finding out as much information as we can on the home. We're asking details that might not be obvious at the time of the walkthrough, like, have you had any pre-inspections? Have you, is your seller living in the home? Is there anything that your seller wants written in the offer that's different other than price? So are there any terms?
Do they need to be in the home a little bit after closing?
Right. Do
all
they
that type
need
of stuff.
rent back? What terms can we write in this offer to write the winning one? So that's kind of step 1. And then once we find out everything that we can, we take it to buyer and we see how buyer can use that information to best strategize a good offer. And that doesn't always mean offering as much as you possibly can to get in the home. I think people think that writing a competitive offer means offering 50 grand above the asking price. Well, that's not always the case. And we don't want you to do that if you don't have to. So for us, the next step is always valuing the home. So then we'll go do our own independent research. Say a home is listed at $500,000 and we do a little research and we think it might only be worth $475,000. That's worth having a conversation with the buyer.
Right. And as much as you may love it, is it worth paying $25,000 more or even above that for this home right now? Basically, you'd be giving up couple of years of appreciation by making that move. But if it's the home for you, then maybe you're okay with that. But understanding where the real value is right now is critically important. The other thing I was going to mention real quick is, when we talk about communicating with the listing brokers, and obviously Makayla and I represent both buyers and sellers, experience makes such a huge difference. And I've been, we talk about this all the time. I'm old. I've been doing this 29 years and there's years of experience, but there's also transactional experience. And Makayla, having been in the business for a much shorter time than I have, has done more deals, more transactions, closed more sales, represented more people than 90% of the brokers in Portland over the past 3 or 4 years. And that transactional experience, the more of these transactions you do, the more experience you are with knowing who the other brokers are out there, knowing what they like to operate, knowing how they like to communicate. And that's kind of one of those things I noticed over the years is I started seeing the same brokers bring me buyers when I was representing a seller, or when we were making an offer, it was the same listing brokers. And when you meet those people over time again and again and again, there becomes a familiarity, and it makes a difference. And when you do good business, when you're professional and you know what you're doing, it makes a difference in how, like when I'm representing a seller and I've got 3 or 4 brokers with competing offers, if I know broker A is a guy or a gal that I've done business with over the years and they're just good, they know how to get it done, they're professional, they know how the whole process works, I want to work with them. And if they're close to being, the best offer, but that, that adds into the mix.
100%. And you're also relaying that to your client, right? When we're showing all the offers and we're comparing them, you're pointing out, hey, broker A does really good work and they're really fair and they do their research. And that means a lot to a client.
There's this concept that people are just going to start representing themselves. And I can tell you right now, if I'm representing the seller and I've got 4 offers and one of them is from someone representing themselves who've never sold a home before or represented themselves in the purchase of a couple of sales, all I know is I'm going to be doing a ton more work with this person. There's going to be much more liability, and the chances of that transaction going south are incredibly high versus working with broker B, who she's someone I've worked with 10 times over the last 5 years. We both know how this game works. We both know what the expectation is. We want to keep buyer and seller together and make sure that both are treated fairly. There's a lot in there. And when you talk about experience, I think all of that adds up.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's, leading into or going back to writing the best offer. I'm just thinking about someone trying to represent themselves with all these contingencies in the offer. Yeah. And it just sounds like a nightmare. And that's something that we really pay attention to, of course, because it's extremely important for a buyer to know that there's, your inspection contingencies and then your appraisal contingencies. And then finance contingencies, and then making sure all those are met before your close date. And all of those little milestones, it's like a perfect little dance that happens. For example, you want to get through the inspection period quickly, like before you decide if you're moving forward with the home or not, because if the roof needs to be replaced and the seller isn't willing to replace the roof for you and you're not able to take on that big cost, then you have a little bit of time to decide if you're going to move forward with the sale yet. At the same time, your bank, if you're financing the loan, is going to want to order an appraisal, right? And if they order that appraisal, and if that appraisal happens before your inspection contingency is up, you're already paying for things.
You're paying $1,000 to have an appraisal done when you don't even know if you want to buy the house yet.
Right.
Right.
And we see a lot of buyers do that. Buyers agents, they already have their appraisal order before we're done negotiating on inspections. And that locks you in. And maybe, you might make a decision that you otherwise would have backed out of if you had the opportunity to.
Well, there's a difference between ordering the appraisal and paying for the appraisal, right?
Right. But it's a dance, right? Like it has to happen.
It is a dance that has to happen for sure. So, you had touched on what's the right price. And I love that we've made it standard procedure that when someone makes an offer, we'll go in, do a valuation, make sure they know exactly where it fits. And, sometimes they follow that. Sometimes they don't. We just had one the other day where the list price was about 25 to 30,000 over what we thought the market value was, but amazing house. We said, hey, let's offer that and just let them know that we're going to be firm. Well, they offered 50,000 below, and we had to go back and forth, and almost lost the house and ended up at the 25,000. And it was like, now we got a little bit of ill will between buyer and seller.
Right.
Don't know how that's going to come across in the repair addendum and some of the other things that need to happen. But it's one of those things that you want to know the actual value of the home when you're making an offer, because the value is what someone's going to pay. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, what is the value that most people are going to pay right now is also a different thing.
Absolutely. Especially if there's obvious deferred maintenance in the home. And I get that, and I totally understand if buyers are wanting to offer a little bit less than the list price. But like you said, let's find the happy medium. Let's find a reasonable number that's not going to leave a bad taste in the seller's mouth and potentially just have a rough sale. Right. That can trickle down the line.
Yeah. And another piece of that, and then we'll move on, is when you make an offer on a listing that's $50,000 below the asking price, a lot of the times, if you don't have a relationship with that listing broker, or you don't word things right, or don't, explain a little bit, if you just drop that across the fence, here's your offer without any type of buffering or anything, a lot of times you're just not even going to get a response. Right. The seller's going to be insulted. And before you even got started in the negotiation,
you're going to get a rejection.
Yeah. And coming back from a rejection puts you in a zero leverage position.
Totally.
Now you've just said, we really want the house. What do you want?
Yeah, now you have no competitive edge. Yeah. Where I'm dealing with this right now with a seller, some folks came in and offered, I think it was 55,000 less than what we're asking. And she just said no. She's like, I don't even want to counter. That's so, that just seems like bad business to me. And they came back and they have offered 35,000. And now 30,000, and it's every week they have a new offer, but we can't get close on price. And my seller just doesn't want to work with them. Yeah. She's like, at this point, I don't even care what they offer. I'm over it.
I'm not going to sell to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of those dynamics going on. And if you hire a broker that just doesn't have the experience or doesn't understand that, you can write offer after offer after offer. And even if you're not offering 50,000 below, if they just don't have that communication or that experience or that wherewithal, it can be a very frustrating experience for you when you're trying to buy a home.
Yeah, and that's something worth considering. How much do you want to go through before you're in your home?
Let's talk about finding about the home. So you get the offer accepted. What happens after that? And we've talked a little bit about this already, but tell me about home inspections and home inspectors and just kind of the dance that goes into that whole process.
Yes, another dance, like you just said. Mm-hmm. But as we touched on earlier, we, as soon as I hear that we get an offer accepted, I'm reaching out to inspectors to schedule the inspection. You have the standard contract says you have 10 business days to do your home inspection and then negotiate on any repairs. Sometimes you might shorten that a little bit. We don't usually like to do shorter than 7 business days. And the only reason you might do that is to make yourself have a competitive offer. So always order the home inspection or schedule the home inspection right away. I like to do it within the first 3 business days if we can, just so we can figure out what's going on in the home. We'll always recommend a couple home inspectors, but Joe and I have been in the business a while to know that there are great home inspectors and there are not so great home inspectors. So we try to encourage you to work with someone that we know, like, and trust, because that can make the process very different. Yeah, there are some really good ones out there, and there are ones that are in the business of purchase avoidance.
I know. They really like scaring people, and they make it a point of, and you know who you are if you're listening. Don't do this, people. But they like to feel like they know everything and are an authority on everything. And, well, this is very dangerous, and this is a health risk, and this is not code, and da-da-da-da. And it's not about them. It's about the house. Right. And this consumer that's trying to purchase this product, and they want to know what that product is and what it isn't, and what needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done.
Yeah, I think the best inspectors are ones that leave opinion out of the report.
We want the facts.
Right. And different inspectors have different scales, but they'll have like worst, bad, fair, good, excellent is I think what our guy uses. And, inspectors are they're considered general inspectors. So their job is to look at the home from roof to foundation, but they aren't experts on those things, right? They aren't contractors on the side who are doing siding. They aren't specialists in all of these items. So they'll
kind of like your family doc, right? If I go on in to get my regular physical and he's like,
oh, doctor. I was like, what?
Doctor. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If I go into my family doctor and he's like, oh, you got something going on with your elbow there, that joint. Yeah. We've got a specialist for that. Let's send you to the specialist and see what they think. He's not going to give he can tell you, I think this looks like da-da-da-da.
Right.
But we need more tests and we need someone that specializes in this to take a look at it. That's what you're doing with the home. If an inspector tells you this is completely failed, that's just his opinion. And like a roof and some things are obvious. Yeah, you look at it and go, okay, yeah, that's toast. Mm-hmm. But they're just there to give you the facts of the situation as they see it, so that if something like a roof or a foundation or the furnace or the crawl space has moisture or whatever the case is, let's get someone in there to take a look at that, a professional who that's what they specialize in doing, for two reasons. One, is it a problem? Two, how much of a problem is it? And I guess three, how much is it going to cost? Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. But I think the good inspectors are good at, kind of putting their hands up and saying, this is fair. I'm rating this is fair. You should contact another professional to come give fair inspection. Could be great, could be not so great.
Right.
But worth noting to decipher those different items. And then in the general home inspection, one of the biggest repair items that comes up that I feel like I deal with in every other sale, is sewer scopes. And people are so quick.
You've had a bad run with those sewers.
Not want to do sewer scope inspections because they're about $150. Or we're dealing with our sellers who this is a different side, but sellers didn't get a sewer scope video done when they purchased the house. And now the problem's just even worse.
Yeah.
But it's worth every penny of $150 to have a guy come out during your general inspection. He takes a camera and he scopes from the clean out outside the house to the street, because you want to make sure that sewer line is healthy. Because if it's not the city's problem to repair it. It's the homeowner's problem.
Well, yeah, you start having problems inside the house, and those are problems no one wants to have.
No.
Right? And if it goes on and on and on and the line completely fractures and breaks, it's not good. And the repair is going to be hugely expensive. Mm-hmm. So $150 versus sometimes $5,000, sometimes $10,000, sometimes $15,000. And if you're a buyer and you say, I don't really want to pay for that. Well,
do you want to pay your $20,000?
Yeah, you're saying, I want to roll the dice and hope that there's no problem, because if there is, I've just turned $150 into $20,000 or $15,000.
And a lot of people think it's a problem in older homes. That's not the case. I just did a huge sewer line repair with the seller, and they just had the sewer line put in 20 years ago. They moved from septic to
and new construction. Mm-hmm. I had this in our notes here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I had a new construction home. This was a few years ago that we were closing on. We were representing the buyers. And I said, hey, we should get a sewer scope done. We were going to wait to have the home inspection done until the end of their year-long warranty, right? Which is fine. But I said, you really should have a sewer scope done beforehand. They're like, why? It's a new home. And I'm like,
you never know. They could have left some debris in there.
Well, the sewer was not connected.
Oh.
Just flat out not connected.
That is so bad.
Yeah. And when he scoped it, he was like, okay, here we go. And they do, it's a commentary. This is one of those things that I remember when Makayla started in the business.
I don't like watching it.
No, I remember the first time we watched one together, she was like, do we have to watch this? And I'm like, well, your buyers, when there's issues, they're going to want to see where's the issue.
Right. They don't want to watch the whole video.
Yeah. Well, And that's why they say 37 seconds. So you can fast forward to, okay, this is the problem. And they talk over it. And the guy was like, okay, so here we're going down the line and we're about 10 feet past. And then it just stopped. And he's like, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he was like, well, this is awkward, isn't it? This is not connected to the sewer. This is going to be a problem, sir. I hate to tell you this.
It's like a live show.
Yeah. So the builder, he was really super embarrassed because this was kind of a high-end house.
Oh, really?
And yeah. And so the contractors that he had do this, they had to come back out, dig it, and actually connect. It would have backed up like immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Dude had a family.
No.
I mean,
It would
seriously, he
have
had
been
like
the
5
morning.
kids.
It would have been their first night. They would have known. For sure. Wow, that's a mess.
Pretty quickly, yeah. So,
So,
anyways,
sewer scope, very important to get done. Sorry for our tangent, but also not sorry because it's worth it.
and sorry if you're reading this with a cup of coffee and the breakfast in the morning here.
Yeah.
Not exactly what you
Maybe
want to
we
talk
need a
about.
disclaimer. So
Yeah.
the next one that we encourage people to get done is radon gas testing. So what the inspector does is he'll bring a little device in and he'll leave it in the home for 2 days, and the seller has to keep the windows and the doors closed and not turn on any fans. Radon gas is extremely bad for you. And they test the levels to see how high it is within the home. The American Cancer Society said that living in a home with high levels of radon increases your risk of cancer by a lot. I forget
like
the
a
percentage,
scary amount
but
high.
it's disturbing. It makes me want to test my home all the time. But radon gas is naturally occurring in the earth and actually moves around. So there's areas where it's more prevalent than others.
Northeast Portland has a lot of it.
It does. And then older homes tend to have more radon as well, often because they have basements, and homes with basements tend to have it.
What happens when you get a high reading? Well, you got to get a remediation done. And this is one of those things, and we'll talk about repairs and contractors later, but radon is famously one of those things, kind of like mold, where you can get a bid for $1,000 and the same house you can get a bid for $4,500. It's like, wait a second, are you guys looking at the same house here?
Right. It's
So
the
knowing the
difference
right
of-
contractors is critical with that. But having a high radon is not the end of the world. It just needs to be remediated, which means that gas needs to be blown outside of the house so that it's not seeping up through the floorboards and the HVAC and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So
It's not that, hard to get done. It's going to require some kind of venting in the basement or the crawl space, but worth knowing.
tell me about mold.
We also deal with mold. I don't know if this is true, but I tell people that we deal with mold in about 70% of home sales in the Pacific Northwest.
Is it true that it rains a lot in the Northwest? I'm just asking. You're an expert.
Yes.
Okay, good. And moisture causes mold? Yeah.
Sure does.
So if you got moisture hanging out in your crawl space, if your house is not sealed well, there's a good chance you're going to have mold. You looked at me so funny when I was like, does it rain here? And you're like, dude, what is in your tea? What is in your actual tea
I couldn't think
today?
of something funny to say, so I just kind of stared at you.
I know, it's teeing it up for you. Cheers. But yeah, I mean, in attics and all over the place. And the other thing is, and I'm probably stealing from what you were going to say here, but we get pictures all the time from inspectors who are like, this attic has mold and da-da-da. And you look at it and you're like, no, dude, that's not mold. That's lumber.
Right. Lumber with...
So when lumber stays stacked at the yard before it's delivered to a house for delivery and it's wet and all that sort of stuff, it can get mold in the stack. That mold will go away once it's dry in the house, but it'll leave a little mark that kind of looks like mold. And we get that all the time. And it's so embarrassing to have to tell an inspector who a lot of times it's, that guy who thinks that he knows everything. And it's like, dude,
all opinion.
Do we really have to send the mold specialists out there to tell us that this is lumberyard mold?
Right.
Come on.
With that, we always coach our buyers to do proper venting in attic spaces if they aren't already properly vented, to make sure that, because you can treat the mold, but you want to make sure it doesn't come back. So that's always a conversation we have.
We already talked about new construction and inspections and walkthroughs and that type of thing. Usually, you get a 1-year warranty, right? So, you'll do a walkthrough and you can see different things and that type of stuff. And some people like to have their inspections later. A lot of people don't even know that they can have an inspection, which is nuts.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. And like radon and sewer, I would say get those things done right out of the chutes, right? Before you close. And then do your full home inspection before, so you can say, okay, I'm still under warranty and here's our list of stuff that is health or safety and help us out here.
Right. I've heard of a lot of people going the new construction route and representing themselves because a lot of people go tour those model homes that you see on the side of the road and you get all excited and you get in there and you fall in love with the house. And then the new construction sales rep convinces you to sign a paper putting you on a wait list to get the home. In that waiver, it says that you're representing yourself or you're using a realtor that is representing the new construction or the builder instead of you or and you. The verbiage can be confusing and, you get into it before you
We
do
did
your
a whole
research.
podcast on this.
Right. We'll
Buying
send
new
them to that.
construction.
But my point with that little monologue is people aren't getting inspection reports like you just said. And how annoying is it? Or inspection. Did I just say inspection? Inspection. Sorry. How annoying is it 3 months in? Like, great, you have a warranty, but my HVAC isn't working or my dishwasher isn't working. How annoying is it to have a repair person come over every 2 months when you can just get a whole report before you move in?
You lose your leverage once you close.
Yes.
They're obligated to do some things, but they'll get to it.
Yeah.
The other thing with new construction that is a pet peeve of mine is if you visit a new construction site and start talking to a representative there and don't mention that you have a realtor and leave the site without signing your realtor's name up. And some of them won't even let you sign it up, but they won't let you, your broker can represent you, but they're not going to pay them.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes it a moot point. You're not going to have representation. So when you're dealing with new construction, you just got to be diligent and make sure that you ask them up front or tell them up front, I have someone representing me. I think that'll all go away with the buyer broker agreement though.
The
broker representation agreement. It should anyways.
True. But for the time being, be careful out there.
Be careful out there. Yeah.
What did you, insurance issues. This is a good one.
This is a good one that I feel like 90% of brokers don't know about and 101% of consumers don't know about.
Insurance is getting harder to get.
It's getting harder to get, but also if I asked you if you would want to know if a major insurance claim was made on the home that you're buying, would you say yes?
Yes.
Yeah, I think everyone would. Well, you can ask for what's called a clue report. It stands for something. I don't know what it stands for. But essentially what it is a report on all insurance claims that have been made on the house. And so you can look back and say, because we've had this happen in the past where you look at the seller's property disclosure and where it says, have you had any issues with the crawl space? Is there any moisture, this and that and the other? And the seller checks, nope. And we look at the clue report and there's a $40,000 claim from a rainstorm that happened and flooded the house. That's something I would want to know. Yeah. And by the way, why aren't you disclosing that? And what else aren't you disclosing?
Right. Did you properly take care of it or did you just do the surface level work?
Can you show us the invoices and was there a warranty involved and all those type of things? So clue reports, kind of a must, especially on houses where you wonder what actually happened here or all that type of stuff.
They're an older home. So lots that go into inspections and, having the home inspection is kind of step one. I know we just talked about it forever, but as soon as you get that inspection completed, you're going to have at least some kind of list of items that you want maybe second opinions on or quotes on. That way you can negotiate with the seller on what you want them to take care of. And getting those quotes back in a timely manner is something that we are pros at.
People think, I have 10 business days to do the inspection. No, you have 10 business days to schedule the inspection, do the inspection, process the inspection, get bids for any work that you're going to request for the most part. And then the seller will probably want to get bids as well to make sure that the bid that you give them is not a ridiculously high bid, and then you can come to an agreement. So all that stuff has to happen in those 10 business days. And then you have to come to a written agreement by 5 p.m. on the 10th day.
Right.
So time's of the essence. And if you don't have contractors that will reply to you or get out to the house or help with that, you got problems.
We have a wonderful list of contractors that we work really closely with, and they know how we work. We know that we're always going to refer them because they do good work. So they get us quotes in a timely manner.
Exactly.
And we can text them right away. They'll run over there and get us exactly what they need. And having that in our back pocket is huge.
I've noticed that they respond better to you and Stephanie. Are you guys nicer, or is it just because
I'm over the top nice?
I'm
to
nice.
Contractors. Yeah, you're nice.
I just don't get the response you guys do. I don't know.
So funny.
Yeah. Well, anyways, we'll work with it.
Luckily,
but
that's what me and Stephanie do.
I think you're both so sweet.
Oh, thanks.
And nice to people, genuinely nice. And I try to be.
You are. I don't know.
I don't know. I won't take it personal, contractor friends.
Maybe they're sick of talking to dudes all day.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's talk to the really cute ladies first. So closing the transaction. And doggone it, we could spend another hour on this, but
we won't bore you.
No, we'll just kind of skim the tops right here because I feel like this is a whole nother podcast. But tell me about appraisals. And do you ever get nervous about appraisals?
You know, I didn't used to until I had one go wrong. So, a couple years ago.
We never worried about appraisals in
we're
2020, 21, 22. And then all of a sudden in 23, people started, lenders started like, hey, make sure that house is in good shape and the value is, But when a lot of these low down payment, when a buyer is only putting 3% down or 5% down, that means the bank owns 95 or 97% of that home. And if they get it back and whoopsie, it's not worth 550, it's only worth 520. They got a problem with that.
Yeah, definitely. So we chat with the appraisers. A lot of times our clients don't even know this, but we are hyping the home up to the appraiser.
What can we do to help you?
Right. We're giving them comparable sales in the neighborhood. If it's a unique property that's out in the country, we're looking statewide for comparable sales to promote the value of the home. We're making sure they can get access to the property to do their inspection. And we're making sure it happens in a timely manner. And then if they have any questions, because certain things can affect the value, which we won't get into, we're making sure we get back to them right away. And all of those things matter. So,
and if you have an ongoing dialogue, most of the time from when you're representing the buyer, you're not going to have any dialogue because the appraiser calls or texts the listing broker to say, hey, I've been hired to do the appraisal on this. Can I get access on such and such date, time? And start having those conversations and this and that. But occasionally you do. But yeah, I mean, it makes a world of difference when you have that good communication going on.
Yeah, we always try to go the extra mile there. And then financing issues come up, unfortunately, and those are tough. So there's certain things that we do to coach our buyers, and we talk about this at the beginning of the transaction rather than the end, because then it's too late. But we make sure to not rack up too much credit card debt, or
don't buy a new car.
Don't go buy a new car, please.
Please don't buy a new car when you're buying a house.
It's not going to work out.
Love that makes no difference with your debt to income or any of that. That's fine. But just don't do it.
Yeah,
just wait until afterwards.
It's a headache.
The boat can wait.
You don't need a boat this summer. Wait, one more year.
My husband bought a boat, and then I get a call from the lender. They bought a boat, and I was like, I just heard. And then I talked to her again. She's, but it's boating season. I was like, well, it was home buying season, but not anymore.
For you.
Not anymore. Enjoy the boat. Is it a 3-bedroom, 2-bath boat?
Did it come with $1,000 in inspections? But it didn't.
Our lenders are just like banging their head against the wall. Why?
Right. So that's a big one, but it's also important to make sure you're getting all the documents to the lender that they need in order to close on time. And we're kind of, managing, making sure that the lender has everything that they need, and then that escrow is notified that things are moving along, or we're meeting our checkpoints. The
checkpoints are a big one, Makayla. And the thing that I always get nervous about is when we're a week or two outside of closing and we don't have underwriting approval.
Yeah.
And Mr. and Mrs. Buyer have moving trucks that they've hired and the dates are set. And the sellers have their moving trucks and the dates have been set. And we can't get a hold of the lender, or the lender hasn't been getting any communication from underwriting. And, well, the file's sitting on so-and-so's desk.
Or they're in Jamaica.
Right. Or they're getting their loan through Rocket Mortgage. Sorry, Rocket Mortgage.
Yeah, it's just never going to be a thing.
You guys aren't good sometimes. And when you're dealing with someone on the East Coast, forget about getting a phone call back after 1 o'clock Pacific Standard. Those transactions, I always know, hey, I got some calls that have to be made at like 7 a.m., right, to get a hold of these people. But those are the type of things in financing that I think so many buyers are like, well, my mortgage broker and my realtor will get it all figured out. Well, make sure the two of them know what they're doing.
Right. And also make sure you're getting them what they need, not next week or tomorrow. Get it to them right away.
Yeah. And if they ask you a couple of times, it's probably important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy how that works.
Title and escrow and preliminary title reports. Preliminary title reports are always, I always click on it and I'm like, oh.
I know. It's so horrible. I always get does that pit in your stomach ever go away? I'm just curious.
On some of them, I'm like, oh yeah, this is fine. And you read through the title report and, people don't know, but sometimes there's adverse, there's clouds on title, or all of a sudden, well, where is this loan from?
Yeah.
Or what is going on here? And a lot of that's on the seller side. But, title and escrow, it's tricky. And like if you're buying it in a trust, or even if you've been divorced, sometimes the names and all these type of things, you got to stay on top of those things. Otherwise, you're delaying closing. And delaying closing, most people think, oh, we'll just wait a couple of days.
No.
Well, think about the time-sensitive things that you have going on, whether it be movers or taking days off or
rent,
or giving notice or all that. Yeah. Good stuff to know.
No notes on that from me.
What about repairs?
Oh, gosh, that's a big one, too.
You've gotten through everything. You've agreed on everything. Seller says, yep, I'll do 1 through 8 on your repair addendum. No problem. Everyone agrees upon it. And then you show up at closing and it's like, well, did they do those repairs or not?
Don't worry. We never let that happen to you. So when you're doing your repair addendum, we put a certain date for the sellers to have the repairs done by. The default is like 2 days before closing. But we'll make sure that we schedule a walkthrough for you to go look and make sure all the repairs are done. And we're also collecting invoices from the sellers to make sure that it was taken care of.
Yep. It is amazing how trusting some buyer brokers are.
Oh, and I love the 17 text messages on closing day asking for the invoices.
Where's the invoices?
Don't worry, I got it in my file.
Here you go.
Relax.
Should have asked a couple of days before because what are we going to do with it now?
That could have been really bad for you.
Closing dates and possession, we've kind of talked about of why it's important that you stick with the dates that you have. And if you have to make changes to it, do it in enough advance where you're not going to have to pay fees or penalties or whatever for different things that come up, right?
Right. But usually closing day is a very exciting day. And it's usually also the day that you get possession. And so we'll meet you at the home and make sure you get the keys and the garage door openers. And we also make sure that it's clean because by contract, they're supposed to leave it broom clean, which means,
It's a very gray term though.
It
broom
is.
Clean.
And we've had issues with that term before.
Yeah.
But, it needs to be clean. Even if they've moved all their stuff out, there's always little dust bunnies there. They should probably have swept that up. But, if you're finding little pieces of dirt on the ground, not worth freaking out over. But if they've trashed the place, we want to make sure that seller is taking care of that for you. So,
and conversely, so funny in these podcasts, Makayla is always looking at it from the buyer side. I'm 99% of the time looking at it from the seller side because that's kind of, our dynamic a little bit. And I just think about when we represent a seller, we'll go to the house and make sure everything's taken care of and, stay on top of, the keys, the openers, all those type of things. And we just had one last week where the buyer went and did their walkthrough. Great broker, loved working with her. And she was like, there's all this stuff that's still here. And, instead of bugging our seller, we were like, okay, no problem. And we went over there with the pickup and got all that stuff, made sure, hey, you guys didn't want this stuff still, did you? Oh, we didn't know that was still. Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You just forgot about it.
It didn't fit in the last truckload.
Things happen. Yeah. Right. They were just done with it.
Yeah.
We're out. And so we went over and took care of all that. But you don't do a walkthrough. You're showing up to the home with your buyers and Oh my gosh, this is a mess. Oh my gosh, there's so much stuff still here. Oh my gosh, half the work hasn't been completed. So don't let that happen.
Right. And we won't.
So those are just some of the things that make it incredibly important to have a competent broker working for you. And if you've been taking notes, awesome. Just hire someone. And by law, you're going to have to,
right,
unless you want to do it yourself.
So work with somebody that you trust.
She over here is the best.
No, he's the best. Learned everything I know from this guy. So hats off, Joseph.
Let's just keep going for 10 minutes, just complimenting each other. Wouldn't that be great? All right. Well, it's been a pleasure, Makayla, as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thanks for listening.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks for joining us today. If you're interested in finding out more about Joe, myself, or the Live Portland team, you can go to liveportland.com. Thanks for giving us a listen, and see you next time on the Off the Record podcast.